Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here, once again with another video on Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, and this is going to be my review for Episode 17, otherwise known as the finale for Season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow, and this episode is otherwise entitled Aruba. So obviously before we go ahead, there will be spoilers, and saying that it is the finale, there is a decent amount of spoilers, so please go watch the episode before you continue on with this video. So obviously last episode we actually got to see the reality that the Legions had set up, and that the Legends were now in, where, you know, everything wasn't really that positive for them. So that really led on to this episode where they needed to go back to the episode before that new reality, that being episode 15 in 1916 in World War I, and, you know, prevent their former selves from stuffing things up and letting the Legion, you know, change reality. Now the opening for this episode was so different but really great at the same time, because usually in a finale they have to, you know, quickly sum up what has happened previously in the rest of the season, you know, set up what's happening in this finale. And they've done it very differently than any of the other shows do, and even what Legends did last season. That really sums up Legends this season, where they really have like reinvented the show and just had fun with it. And that's what this like opening was, like with the music and stuff like that. Just different, but a lot of fun. I did like the mini Rip Hunter and like the mini Wave Rider. It was almost like a Lego set. It was just fun to watch. But when he had to go find the Legends and like he needed the Atom suit to return it to normal size, there was people theorizing and stuff like that, oh, how is he going to get big again? But they explain it pretty easily. Okay, the Atom technology was used to shrink him, and it's needed to expand him. But when he actually expands to the normal size, they start doing like a song, some music, sorry, and it's like a mix of the Flash theme, and it might have been the Legends theme, or the Flash theme mixed with something else, because obviously they were in Star Labs, and, you know, Star Labs is pretty central to the Flash. Now, one cool revelation throughout the opening of this episode, which I guess you could have said was predictable, or you could have, you know, predicted going into this episode, but that was like the revelation that the Legends that we started off the episode with were in fact time aberrations, and time aberrations have been a big part of this season. You know, that's basically what the Legends have been doing, going through time and fixing different aberrations that have popped up. And like the main goal for them throughout this episode, well, at least half of it I guess you could say, was trying to avoid their former selves that were back in 1916, because obviously that can cause a paradox and time can actually fold in on itself. So yeah, it's like the #1 rule of time travel: don't interact with your past self or another version of yourself. Now there was a few like what the hell moments throughout this episode, but the first one, which I really was not expecting, because I didn't think Legends would do this, but we had Eobard ripping Ray Palmer's heart out. You actually see the heart. At first I thought he just phased through him, but I saw that Eobard was holding something, and I was like, no way. He's not holding his heart, is he? And they full on show it. It's not as graphic. It was obviously like a prop heart. They didn't do any like over the top effects with like blood spurting out of the heart or anything like that, but still wasn't expecting it. But I guess that's an advantage of having two versions of the Legends. The future versions are expendable. They can die and nothing really matters. So they really embraced that in the episode, which I thought was actually a really smart move by them. Because in a lot of shows, you might have one death of like the main cast a season, but in this episode, they really went all out. We almost lost the entire cast if you think about it. I did like the future Legends impersonating their past selves, but you did get a couple like emotional moments with like Nate meeting Vixen again, because really, he didn't get to say goodbye. But in this episode, he sort of did, even when like the future Nate does die. So it was nice that they added in that to the episode, and as I said, because they had the two versions of the Legends, it allowed them to do that. But speaking of the two sets of Legends, them meeting each other was hilarious, even when like the two Rip Hunters encountered each other and they were just like bollocks to each other. Thought that was hilarious, even like the two Mix having a go at each other. As I said, they had fun with it. It's been Legends this season. I enjoyed Season 1 of Legends, but it took itself too serious a lot of the time. With the characters they had, it was weird that they took it so serious. But in Season 2, they knew what to do with the characters, and I think they nailed it for the most part. Now, we saw this thing in the trailer, the Time Storm they called it, which we had no idea really what it was, but obviously it's a result of trying to travel with like two versions of the Legends. Basically, as I said, there's a paradox. You know, Time's not really a big fan of that, with, you know, these two versions of each other meeting each other. It was just, yeah, a big mess. But the Time Storm comes into effect later, which we'll talk about. So as I said before, the future legends were expendable. You know, they can die and it really doesn't affect the past ones at all unless, you know, they see themselves die, which I guess you could say could be a bit traumatic. So we saw Ray die earlier thanks to Reverse Flash ripping his heart out. We saw Snart kill Mick, which I thought was pretty heavy. They didn't really focus too much on that, but you know, he creates like an icicle with his cold gun. I don't know if he like it shoots an icicle or he like held it and, you know, just made the icicle and then stabbed Mick. That you didn't get a really good look at it. We saw Nate die, and then we saw Jax die protecting Professor Stein, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, I think you see the future Rip Hunter die. I think he just, you know, Reverse Flash kills him later on, but you don't really get a good look at it. I think they just make it out that he does die. And then Sarah is the only one you see actually like disappear. She doesn't actually physically die, so that was pretty good. Now, speaking of the Reverse Flash, as I said before, what the hell was that army of Reverse Flashes? I was not expecting that. When he said he was going to get an army earlier in the episode, I was like, oh, are we going to get like another evil speedster? Is like Zoom going to show up or something? Like, what's happening here? And then, wow, like a million, or maybe not a million, like 50 or 60 Reverse Flashes. You know, some in the suit, some in that just like black leather thing that he was wearing earlier, just appear out of nowhere, start wreaking havoc. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But as I said, I think one of them kills the future Rip Hunter. You didn't really get a good look at it. Now, if you had read some news articles going into this episode, you knew this scene, or a scene like this, was coming, and it was very emotional. I started tearing up. Didn't full on cry, but my eyes did well up. I'm not afraid to admit that. And that was when Laurel returns through the vision via the Spear of Destiny, and them two are sitting there, and, you know, Laurel's explaining, like, Sarah keeps thinking that she's the damaged one. She isn't, you know, the one to use a spear, and then Laurel's able to tell her that someone pure of heart needs to do it, and that Sarah is the correct person to do it. Because Sarah never really got to say goodbye to Laurel, and this scene really allowed her to come to terms with her death, almost as if Laurel had come to terms that she had to die, if you know what I mean. And I think it was just a nice moment to really tie Sarah's character up, moving on to Season 3. Because really at the end of Season 1, she had to come back and find out that Laurel had died, and that really affected her throughout Season 2, especially seeing that Damien Dark was one of the villains. So they actually tied it off really nicely, and I think they really rounded Sarah's character off really well. And as I said, moving on to Season 3, I'm very interested to see what they do with the character, because she's almost like a refreshed or rebooted character now. But just seeing them two interact again in that matter was just very emotional, but also really nice to see. But speaking of the Spear of Destiny and the fact that Sarah was told by Laurel that she was actually the one pure of heart to use it, we find out that Sarah did change reality, even though we get back there and we're looking around going, okay, Sarah did nothing, what's happening here? But she's actually depowered the Spear of Destiny. That was her change to reality. The spear is now useless. Unless you want to stab someone with it, then yeah, I guess it's sort of useful because it is a spear. And that's what Reverse Flash was going to do with it, but then I think we all saw this coming because it is in the trailer. It was sort of predictable, but Black Flash appears and, you know, just straight up kills Eobard, phases through his heart. I was a bit surprised they did that. I thought they might have done something where, you know, Black Flash might have grabbed him and then, like, Eobard Thawne might have had his, like, powers, you know, or he might have started to shrivel up and then Black Flash might have taken him back into the Speed Force. But they just made it that Black Flash stabbed him, and then, you know, it's similar to the end of Season 1 of The Flash, how he, like, sort of, like, turned into, like, little particles and, you know, just, like, disintegrated, I guess you could say. But what does that mean for the future with The Flash? Because what's happening with Eobard Thawne? Are we going to get him back on The Flash now? Because I think what a lot of people were thinking happening in going into this like final part of Legends of Tomorrow Season 2 was that Eobard Thawne, or the Reverse Flash, was going to be the only one that was able to fix himself up. Like he was a time aberration. That's why the Black Flash was chasing him around, because he wasn't meant to exist. So I think we were all thinking, okay, he's going to fix himself up, you know, that'll lead back into the Flash, and the Flash can use him and stuff like that. But he's gone. So what does that mean? And the real answer to that is, who knows? Because there is a version that we have met in Season 2 of The Flash that still is in existence, because that Reverse Flash in Season 2 went to the future, and then, you know, a couple of whatever period after that, he was going to go back to kill Barry's mother, and that's the one that was taken and was running around in Legends of Tomorrow Season 2. It's confusing as hell, but there is still a version of Reverse Flash that the Flash TV show can use, but who knows what they're going to do. It's very interesting, to see what they're going to do, but I can't really put my finger on what they are exactly going to do and which version we will see. I thought the Goonies reference by Sarah was, you know, fitting for the show. You know, legends never die. I think it was Nate that picked it out. Anyway. But then we see Captain Cold and Damien Dark return to where they were recruited. So Damien was in the 80s. Was it the mid-80s that he was recruited? And Captain Cold was just sometime in whatever, like the 2010s, some period after that. But I did like when Captain Cold was being sent back and he had that conversation with Mick. And it just shows how much Mick has changed. Even though episode 15 and 16 of this season did sort of make you like second guess Mick and just think, oh, okay, has he really changed? Should we really trust Mick on this show anymore? But I think that really does show that Mick is a different character nowadays. One thing I was surprised with at the end of this episode was that Amaya wasn't going back to 1942. I honestly thought they would send her back because Amaya is interesting, but she's not extremely interesting, and I thought they might have just used her for this season, you know, tie in the Justice Society of America, and then ship her back to 1942, might I say, so she can continue on her journey and everything can happen as it was meant to happen. But she didn't, so I'm very interested to see what happens next season with her, because I don't really know if there's too much they can do with her character. But yeah, I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of her staying on, but we'll have to see what happens next season and what they do with her character. Rip Hunter leaving was interesting. They might do something similar to what they did this season, where he was in the first episode and he didn't show up for, you know, halfway through the season. They might do the exact same thing next season. I don't think he's completely gone off the show. I think it's just going to be that he's gone for a bit of the season, because the actor does English shows, like Arthur Darvill, who plays Rip Hunter, does like shows in England, and I think he's only doing one at the moment. I think it's finished filming, but it does conflict with the Legends filming, so they might have, you know, preempted that and just set it up so, you know, we know that he's not going to be in the beginning of next season, but there's still the possibility of him returning, which I would not be surprised if he did. Now, as I said earlier, the Time Storm, well, that pops up again and actually shoots the Legends out in Los Angeles in 2017. Sounds pretty normal, sounds pretty casual, yeah, Los Angeles in 2017. But there's a few things different. There are dinosaurs, and the buildings are quite different. It looked like Big Ben was there, or like a rip-off of Big Ben. So, what the hell is going on here? Obviously, this is Season 3 setup, and I think we knew this was going to happen, sort of like at the end of Season 1, they set up the JSA and stuff like that leading into Season 2. But what the hell is going on here? Well, the answer to that is going to have to be in another video, and I'm going to have to spend my time on it because I think I know what they're doing. There is something from the comics which it's similar to this. I don't know if it's exactly like it. They might take some inspiration from it, but it's going to have to be put in another video. So that will be my next video, probably the time I'd usually upload a trailer breakdown or something. So it'll be out soon the next day, so keep your eyes out for that. But overall, I really enjoyed this finale. I thought it was a really solid finale. I think I could understand if some people complained that it did feel rushed in some areas, but I think for Legends, it fit the show. It fit the theme of the show and the spirit of the show, and I think they did a really good job of tying it all up, as well as setting up Season 3, which I think is one of the most important things for these shows to do, is set up the next season, just to get, you know, give people a sprinkle of what they should expect next season, and if they should continue watching. Even though I think in Season 2 of Legends, there's not much that would spur people, like, you know, turn people off the show. In Season 1, I can understand it because the show struggled. In Season 2, I think they nailed it for the most part, and I think they might have gained a few more fans, especially if people, you know, watch it on Netflix or binge watch it on Blu-ray and stuff like that, between like the show's seasons. So like the Flash and Arrow, and people might watch Legends of Tomorrow Season 2 and stuff, and you know, they might enjoy it and want to watch Season 3. But thanks for watching, guys. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like on it. Let me know in the comments section down below what was your favourite part of the finale, and are you looking forward to Season 3 now, because we've got some dinosaurs in Los Angeles in 2017, and it's built up. It's not like we're in some like Jurassic World sort of thing. Are you excited? That's all I can really ask, because I want to leave everything in regards to that final scene for the video I'll do later on. But yeah, let me know what you thought, not only of this episode, but Season 2 of Legends as a whole. Did you like it? What were things you didn't like? And yeah, what would you look forward to in Season 3? And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys, and goodbye.